All right, so we're gonna go through Chapter 9 notes, and we're going to do it in pieces. The first part here is going to be just talking about basics of graphing quadratic functions. Now, quadratic functions are anything that is nonlinear that can be written in this standard form, ax squared plus bx plus c. So we've done quite a bit with these types of functions. Obviously, your a, b, and c are just numbers, and any of the b term or the c term can be missing. That's not a huge deal. But it's just going to be basically an x squared type function. So also we call parabola is a U-shaped graph. Any quadratic function will give us a parabola as a graph. The parent quadratic function is going to be the most basic, and it will be y equals x squared. That is a simple y equals x squared parabola that goes right through the origin. You'll see it down on this graph right here. That's a parent function. That's what a regular parabola looks like, y equals x squared. The vertex of a parabola is the highest or lowest point. So if I have an upside down parabola, it would be the highest point. If I have a U-shaped graph, it would be the lowest point. And then the axis of symmetry is an imaginary vertical line that basically cuts our parabola in half. So if you see this right here, it basically would be a dotted line that goes right down the center, and it also goes through that vertex point that we were talking about. So we're just going to go through the real basics of graphing here. So let's talk about something real simple. We have y equals 2x squared. So these are all, this is a function because it's like the parent function. The vertex will always be there at the center of the origin on a graph like this. But what we're going to do is, because I know the origin is at x equals 0, I'm going to pick that point in the middle. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to pick 5 points, with our vertex being in the middle. So if I plug this in, I'm showing my work here, so this is going to be 2 times 0 squared, which is equal to 0. So 0 comma 0 is our point. So we plot that. Now, what I do is I pick 2 points on each side of the 0. So say -1 and -2, +1, +2. And again, all I'm doing is plugging these values in. And some of these may not fit on our graph, and that's okay. -2 squared is +4 times 2 is 8. We have -1, so 2 times -1 squared. -1 squared is 1. 1 times 2 is 2. Okay, so 1, we do 2 times 1 squared is 2, and then we do 2 times 2 squared is 8. And again, now we're just going to plot these if able to. So -2 comma 8 would be somewhere up here. -1 comma 2 would be right here. 1 comma 2 would be right here. And then again, the 2 comma 8. And again, all we're going to do is draw a smooth curve, doing the best we can here, and we get a U-shaped graph that looks like this. Okay, so now what we want to do is just point out the graph opens up. The vertex is 0 comma 0. Again, the vertex is the highest or lowest point on the graph, and that's what we got when we did 0 comma 0 here. That's the lowest point on the graph. And then the axis of symmetry, again, the axis of symmetry is a vertical line that goes through the center. Okay, and we always represent that as an x value. Wherever it is, whatever x value it's on is what we call that. X equals 0. Okay, so the graph opens up. The graph opens up because this number is positive. The vertex is 0 comma 0 because that's the lowest point. And the axis of symmetry is x equals 0 because that's the vertical line that we have. Okay, let's look at the next one. This is a little bit different. So what we're going to do is I'm going to pick, again, I'm going to pick 5 values, and it's just going to be real simple here. It's going to be -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2. And we're going to plug these values in, and then we're going to talk about it. So we get -2 squared plus, the negative's got to be on the outside too. Don't forget about that. -2 squared. So -2 squared is 4. So we have a -4 plus 2. -4 plus 2 is equal to -2. Then we have -1. So -1 squared plus 2. And again, we have 2 negatives because that negative is already there, and then we're plugging the -1 in for x. So that's 1, negative 1 plus 2 is positive 1. We have negative 0 squared plus 2. That's equal to 2. We do negative 1 squared plus 2 is going to be, again, a positive 1. And then we have negative, and then 2 squared plus 2. Again, 2 squared is 4. Negative 4 plus 2 is negative 2. So now, when we plot these values, we have negative 2, comma, negative 2. We have negative 1, comma, 1. We have 0, comma, 2. We have 1, comma, 1. And we have 2, comma, negative 2. And you can see that we have a pretty smooth parabola here. That opens down. The vertex, find the vertex, so that's 0, comma, 2. And again, if we're drawing a vertical dotted line straight through the center, that is still at x equals 0. Again, find the x value that it's at, and that's what our x value is, x equals 0. Now, the one thing I want to point out here before we wrap up is, 1, notice that it opens down. That's the first thing. Okay, it opens down. That's because there's a negative in front of our x squared. So a negative means that your parabola will open down. A positive, like what we had up here, means that it will open up. That's a positive 2. Also, this value at the end, the c value is what we call this. Notice our parabola shifted. It shifted up 2. So before it was starting at 0, comma 0, and because of the plus 2, instead of it being at 0, comma 0, it was now at the y value of 2. So the c value shifts your parabola up and down accordingly based on where you're starting. So how we compare this is here, the red one is regular x squared, okay? So what you can see is this graph, the negative flipped it, so the negative will flip it from the original, and the plus 2 will shift it up 2 completely. So it's like it shifted up 2 and then it was completely flipped. Okay, so that is important for you to know what the differences are going to be. Now, keep in mind you can always do this chart and it's still pretty easy. So, all right, so that's it for this video. If there's an Edmodo quiz that's been assigned, take care of that, and I will see you in class and bring questions there.